So my dad is a software engineer. He's retired now. He sells soap at a farmer's market, and that's his retirement gig. But he never bought into the whole thing that was prevalent in the 90s of like computers and video games are not for girls. That's like a boys thing. And I love my dad very much, and I wanted to be my dad when I grew up. So he always encouraged me with computers. I had my own computer very, very young.
Welcome to the Phillip Wylie Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Phillip Wylie.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Phillip Wylie Show. Today I'm happy to be joined by Kat Cozgrove. Kat and I have been connected on social media for years, and recently on Blue Sky, one of my connections there recommended Kat as a guest. So that was a great opportunity. One of the things that's nice about being connected to a lot of people on social media is there's just kind of a wealth of guests to pull from. And so fortunately, someone recommended you, and it's great to have you join today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to finally get to speak with you because there's so many times that you're connected to people on social media, and you may not never even have like a DM conversation. You just
Yeah.
exchange comments on the main threads and that kind of thing. So how is your 2025 going so far?
It's pretty breezy so far. I live in Scotland, and it's been an unseasonably sunny and warm summer, which is nice because it doesn't really get warm here. So that's been a nice change of pace. But I've been on the road quite a lot recently. So a lot of travel, been doing a lot of hiking in the Pacific Northwest and in Colorado. So it's been relaxing.
Well, that's cool. So does it seem, being where you are now, does it seem to make it more easily to be more active? Because, sometimes in the States, it's kind of hard, depending on where, especially like in the South, I'm in the Dallas area.
Yeah.
So everything is so far apart. You don't walk to the grocery store. It's too far to go to the grocery store. So you
Oh,
drive everywhere and you have to make effort to get activity in. So
yeah.
does it seem to be more conducive to be able to get physical activity in?
For like daily stuff, yeah, for sure, because I do walk to the grocery store, I walk to the doctor's office. If I need something, it's like it's very rare for me to need to get into a car unless I am going to the airport. Before I lived here, I lived in Seattle, and I did not live in a walkable part of Seattle, so I had to have a car. But the outdoors is generally feels more accessible to me in the US than it does here, just because I like wilderness outdoors, like no cell signal, maybe this is actively dangerous, hours from another human type of wilderness, and that's kind of hard to, it's not really possible to get in the UK. However, the Highlands are beautiful, and I live right at the base of them in Edinburgh, so I can see them when I'm walking around, and that's a really, really unbeatable view. But I am from rural Tennessee, so I'm not super used to having access to mountains. I grew up in Western Tennessee, not Eastern Tennessee, so not in Appalachia, but a couple hours from it. I'm used to going on hikes in swamps, so the mountains are a nice change.
Oh, very cool. So I always have my guests share their hacker origin story. So if you wouldn't mind sharing yours.
Totally. So my dad is a software engineer. He's retired now. He sells soap at a farmer's market, and that's his retirement gig. But he never bought into the whole thing that was prevalent in the 90s of like computers and video games are not for girls. That's like a boys thing. And I love my dad very much, and I wanted to be my dad when I grew up. So he always encouraged me with computers. I had my own computer very, very young, and I was allowed to do whatever I wanted. I was allowed to screw around. I was allowed to experiment. I was encouraged to. But my brother was a little bit of a terror, and my mom wanted us to not be on the internet all night, I guess. So My dad set up Net Nanny on our network, which was a tool for restricting access to the internet based on time of day or certain types of websites, that kind of thing. This was in like I don't know 2001 or so, 2000 maybe. And back then, AOL was still sending out quite a lot of free trial discs. And I pretty quickly figured out that NetNanny couldn't see what was going on inside of AOL's browser. It didn't know. So that was me back online when and where I wasn't supposed to be. My dad did eventually find out, but he was not mad. He was pleased that I had found a way around it. He thought it was impressive. Said if he caught me again, I was going to be grounded for the rest of my life. But uh, that didn't really help, and I kind of just continued to be a problem because I learned from that if I had an inventive enough solution to getting around a parental restriction, I would get praised for it instead of in trouble for it. So I guess this is I don't know, maybe it's a little bit lame as a hacker origin story, like trying to be online when and where my parents didn't want me to be online. I wasn't committing any cool crimes or anything. I just wanted to chat online with my friends. I was very into, there was a tool called Parachat back then, which was basically just like IRC embedded in a browser. But me and my friends hung out in those. And that's what I wanted to be on at midnight when I shouldn't be. Um, so that sparked something in me, and I just kind of kept screwing around from then on. So when I was 11 or 12, trying to get around
Very
Net
cool.
Nanny with AOL free trial discs.
So career-wise, where did you kind of get your start in technology?
So I first tried to not be a software engineer. I went to college for biomedical engineering at first, and I dropped out. I transferred from Memphis to Georgia Tech, and almost immediately dropped out. I don't regret that decision at all. But because I'd grown up with computers and grown up with my dad encouraging me with computers, I was working as a bartender and I was side hustling, writing people WordPress themes, slinging PHP, and then Joomla themes when I decided I liked Joomla more than WordPress. But yeah, I was slinging PHP as a side hustle because bartending doesn't really pay a whole lot. And I kept doing that for a few years until I decided I wanted to do more. I wanted to actually like build stuff instead of just writing PHP. So I learned Python, and I got a job doing embedded Linux development for a company called JFrog. They had a like weird R&D team. It was just me and these two guys as a weird crack team of just, hey, build some stuff and we'll see if we can productize it. We want to get into embedded Linux. We want to get into the IoT space. So I did that for a few years. The first thing I built was a testing harness for BACnet devices, which never saw the light of day because who cares? I mean, it worked well, but I don't think that there was really a market at that time for a testing harness for BACnet devices. That's a very, very old school class of device, right? I mean, they're still in use in commercial settings, but it's not something that a at the time startup was going to be able to turn into a product. Um, we finally built something very cool. We wanted a way for cars to be able to update over the air. At the time, cars updating over the air, whether it's the infotainment system or like the ECU, some of the more like critical components of a car's computers, they needed physical access to update. You had to flash the device. This was true even with luxury vehicles. Very famously, Jaguar had to issue an enormous recall of their super expensive SUV because of a failure in the computers for the braking system. And all of those cars had to be brought into a service center. The machine had to be physically accessed and flashed. And that kind of sucks. That is a solvable problem. So we built this really cool stack that used Mender, Yocto, and K3S, which is like a minified version of Kubernetes for embedded devices, to build a proof of concept that showed you could, in fact, do this. We could update applications for the infotainment system, so like non-critical applications while the car was driving, no problem. and we could make it look like we were updating like real firmware while you were driving, but it wasn't actually happening. It was happening, the update was being streamed in the background to a secondary partition, and then when you rebooted the car, it would change the active partition. That was very flashy. It got a lot of attention. We got shipped around to talk to some car manufacturers and some other customers, and they had just hired a new head of developer advocacy who saw me give a conference talk about this because none of the other engineers wanted to talk about it on stage. And I got poached and moved out of engineering into developer relations, which I have been doing since in some capacity. I very much enjoy it because I don't write production code anymore. I only write sample applications now, but I have a lot more freedom to choose what I build and when. And I spend most of my time teaching people things, which is very cool. I'm also a Kubernetes maintainer now. That was my first time using Kubernetes. K3S is not how I would recommend learning to use Kubernetes because it takes a lot of security shortcuts for you that you do really need to understand if you're going to hand roll a cluster in production. But it is how I learned it. And I ended up a Kubernetes maintainer over time. I own the Kubernetes release team subproject. So 3 times a year, it's my job to get a new Kubernetes release out the door safely and on time. And I'm also a technical lead for SIG Docs. So I am responsible for the Kubernetes website and the Kubernetes documentation, which I'm very proud of. I think we have the best documentation in the game. So
That's good. Good documentation can be hard to come by sometimes.
can be. It can be. We force people to write it. We don't. I get to wear 2 hats at the same time on this one because I own the release team subproject and I'm in SIG Docs. We don't allow features into Kubernetes that have user-facing changes unless those user-facing changes are documented. Even if it's just a feature flag, you have to document that, or we will not allow the feature into the release. So, people, how are people going to be able to use your thing or break your thing if you don't have documentation? To be clear, for the listeners, I do think people will still break your thing if it's undocumented, but you know, documentation's good.
Yeah, definitely makes it easier for support as well. So support
For
can
sure.
provide good documentation, because a lot of times people don't want to, wait on hold or do a chat online to get support when it can go look at a
Yeah.
wiki or some kind of database of information and figure it out on their own instead of to wait around.
Yeah, just go read the docs. Our docs are huge. They're very comprehensive. So read them. And if you find something wrong, it's an open source software project. Open a PR.
So since like the DevSecOps stuff is pretty popular in Kubernetes,
Yeah.
if someone wanted to get started in that area, what would you recommend?
So Kubernetes has a reputation for being very hard to learn. That very much used to be true. It is significantly easier to learn Kubernetes now. The Google Cloud Get Started guide for Kubernetes is actually really great, in my opinion. It's got an interactive terminal. It stands up a cluster for you, and that makes it much, much easier to like wrap your head around what Kubernetes is actually doing. Uh, for me, I learn best if I understand like why something feels hard. And usually that means trying to use whatever this tool is abstracting. So in the case of Kubernetes, it would be trying to operate an application as a cluster of containers without something like Kubernetes to handle automatically scaling availability up and down, like trying to do that manually. That is hard. That is harder than operating Kubernetes. If that isn't how you like to learn, at this point, Kubernetes is almost 11 years old. There are a wealth of YouTube videos teaching Kubernetes. There are written tutorials, or you can go hands-on, which is my second favorite way to do it, and stand up a cluster on your own machine. Translate an application that you already have into something that runs in a series of containers and deploy it on Minikube on your own machine. That'll kind of get your fingers in it. The Kubernetes community in general is very large and very welcoming. We are the second largest open source project in the world behind Linux by contributors. It's a little bit hard to deal with sometimes, but if you want to get your hands really in it, we always need more help. We literally always need more help. And the two easiest ways to get involved in Kubernetes as a contributor are through either SIG docs or SIG release. For those, if you're not familiar with the term, SIG stands for Special Interest Group, and it is one of the many building blocks that make up the Kubernetes project. But for SIG docs, you can review documentation without knowing all that much about Kubernetes. You can review it for style guide compliance, you can review it for grammar or just like understandability. And over time, reading all of this obscure documentation about small parts of Kubernetes will kind of something will tickle you and you'll decide, ooh, I actually really am interested in Kubernetes networking specifically, or Kubernetes storage, or Kubernetes security. We have a SIG for that. If you want to help make a release happen, this is what most people do to get into the project for the first time because it frankly looks good on your resume. You can apply to shadow on the Kubernetes release team. We open that shadow application 3 times a year. We get hundreds of applicants and we only select about 20 to 25, but it is not a requirement that you have used Kubernetes before. It's not a requirement that you're an existing contributor. We have maybe a quarter of each release team is people who are entirely new to Kubernetes and entirely new to open source. So that's not a barrier at all. But if that's something you're interested in, you should for sure join the Kubernetes Slack and just come talk to us. And there will be an announcement on the dev mailing list when that application is open. Or if you want to help with docs, you can DM me on the Kubernetes Slack, and I will be more than happy to put work in your hands. But yeah, Kubernetes it's a bear, but there's a lot of ways to get involved either as a contributor or learning how to use it yourself, and both of them are going to look good on a resume.
Very interesting. Yeah. So I was going to ask if having that experience was very helpful because, sometimes getting into any kind of area,
Yeah.
technology or security, the barriers getting that experience.
For sure. I think this is something that a lot of people with developer advocacy titles don't necessarily want to admit, but we don't entirely get hired for our personality and our clout and who we know, but it's definitely a factor. Like it looks good for my employer that they have a Kubernetes maintainer on staff. It just does, right? And that's pretty universally true. Being a maintainer of a large open source project does make it easier to get jobs, whether it's because they want the clout of saying, "Hey, I've got this maintainer on staff. Look, we're paying somebody to work on this open source project. Doesn't that make you feel good?" Or because it gives them like some degree of influence over the project. It shouldn't give them some degree of influence over the project, but many companies hope that it will. That kind of sucks. Um, or it's going to make it easier for you to get a job because of who you meet. A lot of Kubernetes maintainers, a lot of Kubernetes contributors are important people at other companies who know other important people at other important companies. And the job market is absolutely horrendous now. It is real bad, and it is kind of just looking scarier and scarier for tech. So if you're trying to break into it or you're looking for a new job and you're anxious, like that's totally valid. Getting involved in an open source project will give you something to do, and it will give you connections with people who can refer you to jobs. That's a great one. I've also made some very incredible close personal friends, but most of the jobs I've had since I started working on Kubernetes have been a result of some connection I made in the Kubernetes project. And that's not unique to Kubernetes. That's true whether you're working on like Node.js or WordPress or Rust or Ubuntu or whatever. It's pretty universal. Like use it as a networking tool. It does look good on your resume, but it is also a phenomenal networking tool.
So how important do you think learning to code or learning to script is?
It depends on what you want to do. I can still, obviously, but I just kind of don't really anymore outside of building sample applications. Early in my career, it was a hard requirement. I was a software engineer. It's what I had to do. When I was early in developer advocacy and I was writing much more sample code myself, and still like writing some stuff for the company's products, then it was a requirement. But as I've moved upwards in my career, it's kind of not really been as necessary. Now I write code when I want to, so I still enjoy writing code. I think a lot of engineers get to a point where they hate it and they kind of start to burn out. I'm glad that I can still enjoy it. For contributing to open source, it's not necessary at all, even a little bit. We need lots of work done that does not at all require you to be able to write code. It is helpful if you can read it. Python is very easy to read once you get the basics under your feet. Same with Bash. Bash is pretty easy to read once you've got the basics. So like a couple of quick courses on like Code Academy or whatever will get you enough to like kind of get the gist of what's going on. But even that is unnecessary. Like the Kubernetes release team is the flashiest, most public part of the Kubernetes project, and absolutely zero coding is involved. You need to know how to use Git, but otherwise it is project management. Most open source maintainers are project managers. That is what we're doing on the day to day, making Kubernetes run as a project. That's project management, not coding. So like, yeah, it's helpful when I like get tagged in with a question about a failing test by the bug triage team and they don't know whether or not it's blocking. I can go look at it and decide, is this an emergency? Like, do I need to like ring the bells of the SIG leads that own this test, or is this maybe not a big deal? That it is helpful that I can read Go and understand where the problem might be and how quickly we can fix this, but it's not a requirement at all. So if you can't code and you still want to get involved, that don't be discouraged. Come on. We've I promise you we've got work for you. Even if English is not like a strong language for you, we have work for you.
Yeah, one of the things that, because you discussing your career and kind of some of the conversation we had before we started recording the episode, I thought would be good to touch on is
Mhm.
that, being a developer advocate, because one of the things people see is career, mid-career or later in their career, they want to decide what to do to change either the role they're doing or, to move up in the ranks.
Mhm.
And most of the time people kind of focus on management or just stay in the same position,
Yeah.
become more senior. So how has being an advocate kind of helped your career evolve, and kind of how has your career changed due to being
Yeah.
an advocate?
Certainly I am much less hands on keyboard technically competent than I was like 7 or 8 years ago. But that's okay because it was never like central to who I am. It wasn't important for like my personal self-worth to be like the best Python slinger in Seattle, right? Like I didn't care. So I found what was important to me, what I really enjoyed about the job, which was teaching other people stuff and being able to learn as many things as I personally can without getting tied down to one particular tech stack. And developer advocacy like really, really lends itself to that. You have to be able to learn a little bit about a lot of things very, very quickly, well enough to explain it to somebody else and make them get it. So it really works well with like an ADHD brain, honestly. Um, and that's it feels nice to teach people stuff. It feels nice to help somebody else's career. A lot of what I do in the Kubernetes project is like helping people grow up into better engineers or better PMs or move out of engineering and into technical project management or something like that. And it's been very, very gratifying. Um, I also do get to travel a lot, which looks more glamorous than it is. I promise. It looks very flashy online, but we are tired. We are tired. You see a lot of conference centers and a lot of airports and a lot of hotels that look the same. But I think it's important to find what you like about the job you're doing now and see if there's a way you can pivot to doing more of just that. Like you don't have to just keep going from like senior to staff to principal. or like within the same job title. You don't have to go be an engineering manager if you don't want to be. Like you can go into technical content marketing if what you like is giving conference talks and writing blogs and building slide decks and building sample applications and stuff. Then you can do developer advocacy, technical content marketing. If you like the part where you solve problems for other people, like make it easier for other people to do their job, then you can go into technical project management or technical program management, that kind of thing. You don't have to force yourself just because you're a software engineer to stay in engineering roles. Like there are lateral moves you can make where that experience is super useful and super valuable, but is not the core of the job. And it's worth looking around at that if you're even a little bit unhappy, because engineering is in fact a burnout factory, and you can always go back. If you don't stay gone too long, you can always go back. Spending a year in technical content marketing or whatever isn't going to destroy your engineering career. If you hate technical content marketing, just go back to software engineering. That's okay. You only live once. So like do something that makes you the least amount of miserable, you know?
Yeah, I think those are some of the roles people just commonly overlook,
Yeah.
because I kind of ended up getting into more of the evangelist side and also help out with marketing areas I never would have thought about. But as far as me with a pen testing background, I'm able to find better opportunities that pay better
Yeah.
than what I was doing when I was technical. Although, say, if I'd have been a really super elite, highly skilled ninja pen tester, I could probably make the same kind of money, maybe even more. But to be able to reach that, I don't know that I ever would have been able to reach that. But I kind of agree with you, the burnout factor and
Yeah,
some of the crazy hours you can work in technical
for
roles.
sure.
It's yeah.
I mean, if we're talking about money, I make significantly more now than I did as a software engineer. Like more than double. So, like it's worth shopping around for sure.
Yeah. And I think some cases too, you take a lot of people that are really good customer facing, like working with people, and these are good opportunities. I just had lunch recently with a former coworker, and she works and was a pen tester, has worked in consulting, really tired of, but like dealing with people. And
Yeah.
some of the recommendations I was saying is, you could be a sales development rep, business
Oh,
development
for
rep,
sure.
a pre-sales engineer. There's other things you can do to be more customer facing, because a good advantage to people like ourselves that are not super introverted and shy, and we like to work with other people. This
Yeah.
opens up other opportunities for us that otherwise you wouldn't have.
Yeah, and people, I find that especially technical people do this. Um, People tend to look down on sales roles and like sales as a role in general. Um, that sucks. Don't do that. Don't look down on the sales guys. Like we keep coming up with new job titles to make sales roles sound less salesy. Like solutions engineer, that is a sales role. It is. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's okay. It's okay even if your title is just sales. Some people like that. And it's fine. It's Gucci as far as I'm concerned. Because ultimately, like we are all forced to labor under capitalism. I don't want to work. I do not. I want to I want to sit on a beach or like on a mountain and read a book. I do not want to go to work. Nobody does for the most part, except for people whose jobs are their hobbies. But if you can find like some small amount of joy in what you do, I am not going to give anybody any amount of crap about what their job title is, ever. I, Even if it's in sales, it's it's okay. We all got to get over hating on sales. We're not better than them.
Yeah. In a lot of cases, it brings us business that keeps our jobs going. And
Yeah. Like you
yeah,
don't have a job without the sales guy. Like you just don't. And none of us are above sales. I worked in technical sales when I was like 18, and I didn't enjoy it, but it paid the bills, you know? Don't look down on the sales guys, folks.
yeah. And so one of the things I know too, I know you're big on community. We mentioned conferences and stuff before we started. So if you
Mhm.
wouldn't mind sharing your thoughts on community conferences and how you feel like that helps people's careers and networking opportunities.
Yeah, that is also definitely a networking opportunity, but also a learning opportunity for things that you already know you want to learn more about, and learning about things you didn't know you wanted to learn about because you don't know what you don't know. Uh, I would recommend going to some like kind of slightly more broad community events, big conferences. Like I go to KubeCon and Open Source Summit, and I just went to RSA and Black Hat is coming up next. Those conferences are very expensive to attend. Those are prohibitively expensive to attend for a lot of people if you don't have an employer paying for it for you. But good news, you can go to like a DevOps days or a Kubernetes community day because those are usually only a couple $100. I don't think I've ever seen a DevOps days more than $300 for a ticket, and those are in a lot of ways more valuable. The big, expensive, flashy conferences, yes, there will be a lot of like heavy hitters there to rub elbows with. But realistically, if you are a random person, you will not get an opportunity to rub elbows with those people. There are 12,000 people at KubeCon. You are probably not going to have drinks with Chris Anichek, the CTO of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. That's not going to happen. You might see him, but you're not going to have drinks with him. However, if you go to a smaller conference like DevOps Days for whatever city you're in or the nearest one to you, those are smaller. It's usually like one to three, 400 people there, and a lot of them are heavy hitters, and they are all at a community event that is built for networking. The point of a DevOps Days is to go and connect with your local community, connect with your local tech community, socialize, become friends, work on and learn and build cool new stuff together. So go to those. If your employer is paying for it, definitely go to KubeCon. The talks are incredible. I'm biased because I'm on the program committee, but like if what you want is to like build a close net network and try to like build and find and build a community in tech, go to your small local conferences. Do not go to the huge ones. The small ones are a better use of your time and money for networking purposes. I go to ugh, more than a dozen conferences a year, which sounds bad. And the small ones are still my favorite, even over the huge flashy ones. I hate going to reInvent, for instance. Absolutely cannot stand that conference. But go to the little ones, make some friends.
Yeah, I agree. The smaller ones are more fun. I still like the big ones because of the fact that so many people
Yeah,
that I get to see there, but the smaller ones are nice because you've got more time. It's less stress. And if you're trying to catch up with everyone, it can be kind of stressful and overwhelming where the smaller conference is a lot easier.
yeah. It's just it feels like hanging out with friends at the smaller one, and by the end of it, they are your friends. So like I mean, people you don't know will buy you dinner. Like it's a much better time, and the talks are usually like weirder. Like people pull out the fun talks for something like a small community event. They give the like very polished, very professional, very dry ones at the big events. Not me though. I'm well known on the conference circuit for being goofy even at the big conferences, but the average conference speaker brings out the weird stuff for the small events. You're going to see somebody speaking with passion about their weird hobby project that you might also find interesting and want to get involved in. So it's a better time.
Very cool. So thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. And I know it's later there where you're at. So thanks again. And if there's any closing comments you have, please feel free to share.
One closing comment. Um, Open source is free and it's built by people who are working for free. So please be nice to us. Be nice to us in GitHub comments, in issues, in Slack messages. We might work for people. Some of us may even work for like big cloud vendors, but the overwhelming majority of us are doing this in our spare time because we love it, because our friends are doing it too. So you'll catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. If you want something from us, be nice, and we'll probably give it to you. But if you're rude, I will do everything I can to make sure that you do not get what you want. So
Great advice. So thanks again for joining.
yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks, everyone. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and share with your friends, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to The Phillip Wylie Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Phillip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter @Phillip Wylie. Until next time.